whenever there is an abnormal mobility, that is a sure sign of fracture. So until and unless there is a break, you will never get an abnormal mobility. So when you see an abnormal mobility, that means that you will have a the, this area. If you have a movement, it means there is a break. So then crepitus you can get in non-trauma conditions also. Even general surgery also you can get crepitus. So these are the signs of a fracture. Okay. Then okay, how do we define fracture? How do we classify fracture? A fracture can be caused by traumatic fracture that we come across in our day-to-day life, road traffic accident, industrial accident, falling from height, and that is traumatic fracture. And there are other types such as pathological fracture and stress fracture. We are going to see one by one later. Sometimes the fracture may not be opening to the outside environment. The fracture is closed. It is known as simple fracture. If the fracture is not communicating with the external environment and it is closed fracture, or is known as simple fracture, because the treatment is straightforward, simple. If the fracture opens out and there is bleeding, the bone fragments are looking outside, it means it is known as compound fracture or open fracture. It is compound because the problems, the treatment, the complications are lot of difference it makes. So it is known as compound fracture, and based on the anatomical type, you can have a transverse fracture, oblique fracture, comminuted fracture, and we have slides. I will tell you what it is. Okay. Look at this. Look at this. This is a normal bone, something like this. So when you pull the bone along its axis, pulls apart in a opposite direction, that force is known as tension force. When you compress it, it is known as compression force. A bone can be compressed, it can be distracted, or it can be bent, or it can be twisted. So based on the different type of the load or the force on the bone, it will produce different type of fracture. Okay, but what you should know is that is a tension force. That is tension force. This is tension force, and this is compression force, and this is bending force. And shear you don't need to understand. You don't need also. And this is torsion. Torsion is twisting. You can twist it. Sometimes a bone can be exposed to combination of more than one type of load. Okay, fine. Yeah, the same thing. See, look at this. When a bone is compressed, compression force. Look at the directions. When it is compressed, it will produce oblique type of fracture. The fracture is oblique. The fracture is oblique type. When you distract, when you just pull the bone away from each other, and you get what type of fracture it is? It is a transverse fracture. It is a transverse fracture. When you bend, you create a fracture where you create 1/3 triangular fragment, wedge shaped fragment, and this is when we twist the bone, you will produce spiral type of fracture. So twisting force will produce spiral type of fracture, compression type of force will produce oblique fracture, and tension force will produce transverse fracture, and bending force will produce a different or wedge fragment. Okay, you can just see the tabular column where tension force, sometimes direct injury, you hit the bone like this directly and you produce transverse type of fracture. So direct injury or tension force will produce a transverse fracture, twisting force spiral fracture, and bending force will produce a wedge shape, otherwise known as butterfly fragment. What we say is butterfly fragment, and compression force will produce oblique fracture. Okay, so by looking at the X-ray alone, you will know what type of force would have acted upon the bone. If the patient is having a transverse fracture, it means it may be direct injury or tension force, something like that. Okay, based on the X-ray and the type of anatomical type of fracture, you can come to a decision what type of force would have acted on the bone. Sorry, yeah. One more slide. This is normal, transverse fracture, oblique fracture, spiral, comminuted. What do you mean by the word comminuted? You will have multiple fragments. Small, thoda fragments, more than 2 fragments when you come across, that is known as comminuted fracture. And segmental, you have multiple segments, sorry. See, one segment and two segments. So, multiple segment fracture, and these things we'll see later. We have slides and I'll tell you what are they. Okay. What we have seen so far is traumatic fracture, that is, you will have a strong bone. Your strong bone needs strong violence to break it. So, your normal strong adult just like that cannot have a fracture. He needs some vehicle to come and hit, or he needs falling from a height, considerable height, that is traumatic fracture. Imagine a situation where the bone is weak. The bone is weak by a tumor or infection or any disease. The bone is not strong, it is weak. That weak bone does not require severe force. You can simply break it. So, here that is known as pathological fracture. Here the bone is weak. So, you do not need more energy, more force to break it. Simple slip into the toilet, slip into the stairs or lifting a bucket can break a bone. So, this is known as pathological fracture, where the bone is weak, the fracture occurs during a night activity. Sometimes you sleep in the night, when you get up you will have a fracture. It is known as spontaneous fracture because the bone is weak. What diseases creates pathological fracture? It can be a generalized bone disease, it can be local, any disease which affect the strength of the bone will break the bone. Okay, and it can be causes can be localized cause or it can be a generalized cause. Because the bones are diseased, they do not have a normal potential to unite. So, non-union is the most important complication. Sometimes when you ask the patient, before the fracture, did you suffer any injury, any pain, anything? The patient will tell you, yes doctor, before fracture I was having a pain and I was having some swelling, something like that. So, by history you can know that it is not a traumatic fracture, it is a pathological fracture. The patient will have will give history of trivial injury, something small injury. Okay, that is this part. These are the symptoms you can come across: trivial injury, pain before fracture, spontaneous fracture. These are the clinical history you can get to find out whether it is a pathological fracture. Okay. Okay. Look at the picture. Here, the bone is diseased here. So you can simply break. You don't need more energy. So, or the bone is affected by osteoporosis in older age women, osteoporosis. So, the osteoporotic bone won't be able to sustain a normal weight itself. So, it will have a compression. So, abnormal bone, normal load. So, that is the pathological fracture. The causes can be anything which affects the strength, integrity of the bone will definitely break it. You don't need to mug up anything. It is any disease which can affect. It can be a systemic disease, it can be a local disease. A local disease can be a cyst, a tumor, an infection, anything, or systemic disease which affects the strength. And most important cause is osteoporosis. Osteoporosis is the most common cause of pathological fracture, and it is a generalized disorder. And in our country, osteoporosis is the most common cause of pathological fracture. Okay, what are the pathological fracture the osteoporosis will produce? There are three sites marked, and the wrist. What type of fracture will you get in the wrist? You get Colles fracture, distal radius fracture, Colles fracture. In the hip, you get neck of femur fracture, and the vertebra. I just showed you one slide now. Compression, vertebral compression fracture. So, these are the three important osteoporotic fracture. People who are suffering with osteoporosis will get these three important part of the body to be affected by osteoporosis. Among this, in osteoporosis, the vertebra is the most common site of osteoporotic fracture. You can see older age men and women who walk with a kyphotic deformity. Why it is? Because of the spinal vertebral fracture. See, this is a normal lady, and if you get a vertebra not like this, you are okay. If you have a compression, multiple vertebral body giving a wedge compression, and you get a kyphotic deformity, this is known as senile kyphosis. Senile kyphosis because of the osteoporosis, multiple vertebral body going for compression, and you get vertebral compression fracture. Okay, otherwise the senile kyphosis, otherwise known as Dowager's hump. Okay, and look at this picture, it tells you everything. This is normal shape of the vertebra, normal adult. If the patient is suffering with osteoporosis, the bone won't be strong enough to hold the body weight, and you get a micro, multiple, I mean wedge fracture like this, and you will have a one vertebra, another vertebra, another vertebra. When the everything goes for, sorry, in everything goes for compression, and you will get a deformity like this. So this is osteoporosis producing senile kyphosis, otherwise known as Davage's hump. Okay, yeah, yeah, patient is having a tumor here. You know that the tumor will compromise the strength, and the patient may have a pathological fracture in future. How do you warn the patient that you are going to get a fracture one day? The lesion may be small, the lesion may be bigger. A smaller lesion may not produce pathological fracture, but it is your duty to warn the patient that patient may get a pathological fracture in future. So we need a scoring system. We need to get a scoring system to plan for a treatment. If the patient sustains fracture, the treatment is double. You have to treat the lesion and treat the fracture. You can avoid a patient sustaining a fracture and putting an implant inside. So how do we avoid? There is a scoring system known as Merrill scoring system, and it takes pain, size of the lesion, where which part of the bone it is located, and what is the X-ray appearance. Based on this, you give score marks 1 to 3, and if the score is 8 or more, the patient will definitely go for pathological fracture. So it will guide you that when you get a score 8 or more, and you can prophylactically fix the fracture, so that patient may avoid a fracture in future. Okay, and you know most common cause of pathological fracture is osteoporosis. Yeah, the scoring system is, oh my goodness, sorry. Yeah, I just told you now, Merrill scoring system: site, pain, size, and lesion. If the lesion is osteolytic, if the pain is severe, if the size is more, obviously will get a more score, higher the score. So it is for predicting pathological fracture, and accordingly you can prophylactically go for a open reduction and internal fixation. And we have seen two fractures. One is traumatic fracture, the other is pathological fracture, and third is stress fracture. What is stress fracture? You are a normal adult. There are some doctors who, after completing MBBS, they don't go to PG, they go to IPS. They select a civil service and go to IPS. So though you are a normal strong man, you are not adopted, or you are not exposed to running 3 or 4 miles in a day. It is very new. Though we are strong, we are not experienced that much enough to run a drill in the morning. If you are asked to run 5 miles a day, what will happen? The bone won't be able to sustain that much of force. The bone won't be able to adapt the stress. So your bones will be stressed more. So after 10 or 15 days, you will start complaining of pain, and whichever the bone you are using more, and that bone will be giving you complaints. That is known as stress fracture. Your bone is normal bone. Even running is again a normal activity. But if you are running for a month or more than 15 days continuously, that is not a normal activity. For you, it is not a normal activity. So it is normal bone with repetitive normal load, and the bone, it is cumulative effect of the daily running. You are stressing the bone more and more, and it is producing fracture. That is known as stress fracture. So usually the police recruits and the army recruits, usually they go for marching in the morning time. Okay, because the stress activity is associated with marching activity, it is known as march fracture. They are more or less interchangeable, because we usually stress the lower limb, not in the upper limb. If you are an athlete and going for any sort of a sports training using upper limb, you will develop stress fracture in the upper limb. So logically speaking, any bone in our body can go for stress fracture. Whichever the part of the body you are using, you will get stress fracture. And common things are common. The most common bone which is going for stress fracture is second metatarsal bone. It does not mean that third, fourth and all will not go. No, any bone will go, but most commonly it is second metatarsal, particularly neck of the second metatarsal. Look at the picture, and it is the second metatarsal neck and stress fracture. And if you look at the slide, you can have a femoral neck of femur, tibia, fibula, navicular, talus. One of my friend who is an IPS officer suffered talus and one calcaneum, forearm bone. So most common is metatarsal bone, most least common is metacarpal bone. So metacarpal bone usually, that is a rare possibility of metacarpal bone to go for a stress fracture. Okay. Here what is the treatment? There is no swelling, there is no bleeding, there is no abnormality. So what is the treatment? You tell them, Baba, your bone is not adapting, so you take rest for some time. Rest sometime. If there is some severe pain, you can go for a POP application. So the treatment is just rest and avoidance of aggravating activity. Understood? Fine. Okay, that's just to remind you that any bone, tibia, fibula or calcaneum, talus, metatarsal, any bone can go for stress fracture, and the second metatarsal neck is the commonest one. Hereafter the questions will come, and the questions usually they are taken from previous question papers, and I have selected the question paper to go along with the discussion. Okay, and diagnostic sign of a fracture. What is your answer? Abnormal mobility, because pain, anyone can get pain, anyone can get tenderness, swelling. Whenever the movement should be available in the region, in this region, only in the joint, normally movement is available, allowable. If you have a movement in this side, it means there is something wrong. So abnormal mobility is the pathognomonic sign of a fracture. Okay. Fine. What is your answer? Osteoporosis. This question has been asked in various exams repeatedly, and the commonest cause of pathology fracture is osteoporosis. Commonest site of pathology fracture is vertebra. Very good. Vertebra. Yeah, are affected in osteoporotic fracture is vertebra or spine. Yeah, very good. Yeah, which of the following needs violent force, or they are asking which does not require, which of the fracture does not require more violence. So what is your answer? Which of the following needs violent force? What are the bones which can go for pathologic fracture? That is what his question is. Okay, I have told you three important bones which are known to occur in osteoporosis. One in the wrist, what is it? Colles fracture. In the hip, neck of femur fracture. In the vertebra, spine fracture. So you exclude them. Neck of femur fracture, Colles fracture, both are pathologic fracture. They don't need severe violence. And neck of femur fracture means also intertrochanteric fracture. You can exclude that also. So what is the remaining? So clavicle, just like that one break, you have to fall down. Severe force is required to break the clavicle. So the answer is what? Good. Okay. I told you anything, any bone, any disease which affect the strength of the bone will ultimately break it. So that is the pathologic fracture. So I have given you 5 conditions which will not affect the strength of the bone. Cause of the pathologic fracture or except. Fluorosis, it affects the bone, is it not? Fluorosis is common in Andhra and Tamil Nadu and Nagarcoil. What technique it is? What do you mix? Defluorization technique. Which one first? Very good, fine. Okay, it affects the bone, it increases the density and ultimately breaks it. Okay, so the answer is what? Anything can cause. Why? Bone cyst also will produce. It is osteochondroma. Look at this. Osteochondroma is an external growth. If the same tumor is occurring here, it will strengthen, it will affect the bone. For a chair, stool better. So, and this is an external growth. The original bone is intact, is it not? The parent bone is intact. It is not at all compromised. It is an external growth. It is no way going to affect the normal strength of the bone. So obviously this will never cause a pathological fracture. You understand? If the same tumor is occurring here in this region, it will affect the strength. But this is the original bone is intact, the parent bone is intact. So that will not cause any pathological fracture. What is the usefulness of Merrill's criteria? This risk of pathological fracture, and what way it is going to help us? Yeah, it is to think of or plan for prophylactic internal fixation. Even you can do ORIF even before the fracture happens. So that is the usefulness of Merrill's criteria. So answer is what? C. Good. Direct impact. What type of? Yeah, very good. Direct impact. Oblique fracture. Where do you get oblique fracture? Compression. Yeah, when you apply tension, TT, tension transverse fracture. Spiral. Yeah, twisting, torsion force, spiral fracture. When you bend it, you will get a butterfly fragment. Once you keep solving the question, and you will understand. What is March fracture? Second, this question has been asked in lot of exams here, and you look for the all of the above. If there is an all of the above, go for it. If they are asking only one response, the best is second metatarsal. Commonest site, even last JIPMER they asked this. Second metatarsal, neck. Okay, what type of fracture it is? A patient is having a carcinoma breast and some metastasis in the tibia. It is a pathologic fracture. So the pathologic fracture, you know very well that it won't unite, because it non-unite is a complication. So you cannot apply POP, no Puttur cut, nothing. So you have to do surgery. It is open reduction. Internal, any pathologic fracture needs surgery. Understand? Okay. Now we are going for the treatment of fracture. All fractures do not require surgery. We can operate and we can treat the fracture non-operatively also. So there are certain methods to treat certain fractures. Look at this slide. The non-operative treatment. The first is PTB cast. The PTB cast stands for patella tendon bearing cast. PTB cast is patella tendon bearing cast. You apply POP. This is POP. Okay. POP from the patella tendon. This is patella bone and this is patella tendon. From patella tendon up to the foot, you apply a cast. This is known as patella tendon bearing. The cast is borne by the patella tendon. So patella tendon is bearing the cast. Patella tendon bearing cast. If you think that the fracture in this region, there is tibial shaft fracture, undisplaced fracture. You think that it will unite in children, sometime incomplete fracture. You don't need to go for ORIF. In that case, you can simply apply POP. What POP you can apply? PTB, patella tendon bearing cast, for tibial shaft fracture. It is not for a patella fracture. Patella tendon bearing cast is nothing to do with anything with patella. It is for a tibial shaft fracture. And look at this. It is a figure of 8. See, it is a figure of 8 bandage. Figure of 8 bandage. When you have a clavicle fracture here you can apply figure of 8 bandage. That is the, see, clavicle fracture usually treated conservatively. Non-operatively only we treat. We don't do any surgery. So non-operative method is figure of 8 bandage. And in the humerus, look at this. This is a humerus fracture. Okay. And here, when you have a humerus fracture, you can treat by POP. One, U-slab, other is hanging cast. The example here is hanging cast. You apply POP, the weight of the POP will pull down and align the fracture. By gravitational force, the cast is hanging and it reduces the fracture. So hanging cast and U-slab, I think there is some other slide, I will teach you later. Okay, so PTB cast for tibia, figure of 8 for clavicle, and hanging cast or U-slab for humerus. See, hanging, H, U, humerus. You can easily remember. Yeah, hanging cast. This is, I just told you now, if the fracture is here, you don't need to cover the fracture. You just apply POP. The weight of the POP will realign the fracture fragment and reduce it and keep it in a position. And why this is called U slab? Because it is applied in a U-shaped manner. See, this is U, is it not? So that is why it is known as U slab. The slab is applied in a U shape. So U slab. So U slab and hanging cast both are useful in the managing humerus shaft fracture. Okay. So you can recollect your memory. Hanging cast, U slab, and PTB cast. This I will tell you later. This I will tell you later. The tube cast or cylinder cast is applied for a fracture around knee joint, hip spica. I think the slides are next. Yeah. Look at this slide. This is known as hip spica. You apply POP covering the hip joint and femur. So any problem in the hip, any problem in the knee, you can apply. You can reduce it and apply this POP. This is known as hip spica. You cannot apply this hip spica for an adult patient. No, it is not possible. You can apply only in the children. Small kids you can apply because the fracture unites early and they can be managed. And you should leave some space for a perineal area for a urination and yeah, fine. So this is known as hip spica. So hip spica is usual in children. The injury in the around the hip joint or in the femur you can manage with hip spica. Okay, and look at this. This you know already, that PTB cast, and this is knee joint. So this is short leg or BK cast, and this is knee joint. This is AK or long leg cast. So this one is neither short leg nor long leg. You leave hip joint, you leave ankle joint, you cover only the knee joint. So when you cover only the knee joint all around, it looks like a tube or it looks like a cylinder. That is known as cylinder cast. So any fracture around the knee joint, distal femur fracture, proximal tibia fracture or patella fracture, where you think that the fracture do not require surgery, simple POP is enough. In that case, you can go for a cylinder cast. So cylinder cast and hip spica or other modalities to treat some fractures. Understand? Fine. Look at this. There are certain traction methods. You can simply reduce a fracture by manual traction and apply POP, that is manual traction, and this is skin traction. You apply a bandage and tight all around, tighten it and apply some weight, and that is known as skin traction. Okay, and you can insert a pin into the bone and apply weight, that is skeletal traction or pin traction. Okay, so this is manual traction, skin traction and pin traction. We are going to see one by one. Okay, what is traction? It allows constant. For example, a patient is having a fracture here. It is overriding like this. It has to be reduced and aligned. So it is a controlled traction for initial stabilization. If the fracture comes here, and it is easy to fix them. So aids in reduction. So the traction is important to reduce the fracture, to maintain the alignment. So it can be skin traction, it can be a skeletal traction. Skin traction. How do you apply skin traction? You just wrap around. Take a bandage and wrap around the limb. It may be an upper limb, it may be lower limb, whichever part you want to apply traction. And after that you connect with the weight. The problems are only 5 kg can be applied. If you apply more weight, the bandage will just slip and come out. And if patient is having laceration, any skin disease or any vascular problem, you cannot apply tightly, na? So in that case, they are contraindicated. So skin traction can be useful in lot of conditions. The limitations are only 5 kg can be applied, and if the patient is having a soft tissue problem such as skin lesions or nerve lesions or vascular lesions, you cannot apply. And examples are, this is, I'll show you the slides, Buck's traction and Gallows traction. See, this is Buck's Russell sling traction, and this is Bryan's modification. This is known as Gallows traction. We have a slides in specific fracture. You just look at this. I am giving you just an introduction. We are going to see them later. Okay, this is again a traction only. This is skeletal traction. Sorry, The slides are, yeah, skeletal traction. Look at this. You can put a pin something like this here, here, and insert a pin into the bone. When you insert a pin, you can apply more weight, up to 20 kg you can apply. So when a cervical fracture patient, you can simply reduce by applying a skull tongue. You insert one pin and apply weight, that is skull tongue. And any femur fracture, distal femur, you can insert a pin and pin. See, look at this. See, this is in the upper limb olecranon, in the lower limb tibia, sorry, femur, in the calcaneum, in the finger, any part of the body you can insert a pin and apply weight. So this is known as skeletal traction. Okay, and I just want to show you some slides. This is skin traction. This is known as Dunlop traction. Dunlop traction applied in the upper limb. Either you can use both side only skin traction. If that is slipping, you are not happy, and you can go for inserting a pin also. Here it is pin. Here it is not pin. Okay. So Dunlop traction is majority. They are skin traction. So sometimes they can use pin traction also. And this is again 90-90 traction. The limb is kept in 90 degree, hip is a 90 degree flexion and knee is a 90 degree. Look at this, the fracture is here, hip is a 90 degree flexion, knee is 90 degree, this is known as 90-90. Here this is skin traction, but here it is pin traction, pin has been inserted into the bone, okay. And this is just, the slides may be confusing, but once you look at this, it is easy to solve the question. There is no difficult question you will see in this section. And this is DDH, the developmental dysplasia of hip, that is CDH, congenital dislocation. These patients you can simply reduce by using Pavlik harness, that we will see tomorrow in the pediatrics. Okay, fine. What is your question? Yeah, maximum weight can be applied in skin traction. How much weight you can apply? Yeah, you cannot apply more weight. If you apply more weight, it just it gets slipped. Okay, so 4 to 5 kg only you can apply. Weight can be allowed in skeletal traction. How much weight you can? Yeah, 20 kg. 20 kg or 20% of body weight you can apply. 20% of body weight, up to 20% also you can apply in skeletal traction. Yeah, all are skin traction except. Last year when I came to Tirupati, this question the students have been discussing. And if you look at, all are skin traction only. Only Dunlop, certain cases they use pin. There may be a dummy question, we don't know. So Bryans, Bucks, Russell, everything is skin traction only. Dunlop, there are certain cases you will get some people may insert pin, but Dunlop traction is again a majority skin traction only. Okay, fine. Contraindication for skin traction, quick. Yeah, dermatitis. See, PGI is multiple options. Yeah, skin aberration. Bony deformity, the idea of applying traction is to reduce the deformity. So, bony deformity is the indication, not contraindication. Okay, fine. What we have seen so far is reduction method and some non-operative POP method. Now, we are going to see fixation method. The fracture can be fixed either inside the body or outside the body. If you look at the slide here, this is bone and you place an implant on the bone itself, and this is inside the bone. So these both are internal fixation. The implants are put inside the body, so they are internal fixation. For closed injury, if the fracture is not open, there is no communication, you can go for an internal fixation. And look at this, here the materials are lying outside the body. So this is external fixation method. So external fixation methods are useful for open injury patients. If the patient is having an open injury like this, here you cannot keep anything inside because it will get easily infected. So open injury, open fractures, external fixator, closed injuries, internal fixator. What are the internal fixator? Okay, this is internal fixation. It can be an intramedullary nail or a plate you can use. This is internal fixation. Or external fixation can be one side rod alone or circular fixator. The circular fixator you know very well, Ilizarov. Okay. So, in the external fixator can be a single rod, it can be an Ilizarov. So, internal fixation can be a medullary rod, intramedullary nail, or this may be plate. We have a slides, do not worry, we have slides, I will tell you what it is. Yeah, in the fixation method we can use plate, we can use nail, we can use simple screws, we can use wire, tension band wire, or you know very well that external fixator useful for open fracture. Okay. Plate, see the general dictum is that upper limb bones, humerus and forearm are treated by plate. Intramedullary nail, lower limb, femur, tibia are treated by intramedullary nail, over. And small fractures, small fragment fractures can be treated by screws alone. And tension band useful in patella fracture. Upper limb you do not have any patella. In upper limb, what is the counterpart of patella? Upper limb, Olecranon is the counterpart. So, Olecranon you can treat, and there are certain avulsion fracture it can be treated such as medial malleolus. We have slides, I will tell you what it is. Yeah, this is plate. Okay. You apply a plate like this, and when this is a plate, the fracture is here. When you insert a screw, when you tighten the screw, see, when you tighten the screw, it will produce compression at the fracture site. So, that is why it is known as dynamic compression plate, DCP, dynamic compression plate. So, the compression is important, that then only the bone will come and contact with each other and unite. You should not allow any gap. If you allow gap, it will never unite. So, dynamic compression plate is important to produce compression at the fracture site. See, the arrow indicates that the compression. So, this is compression at the fracture site should be achieved to achieve union. The plates are useful in treating fractures of upper limb such as humerus and forearm. And yeah, look at this. This is lower limb. This is femur and this is tibia, where you can insert a rod, intramedullary rod. Okay, that is intramedullary nailing. And I just told you screws in small thoda fragments, small fragments. Look at this, it is a small fragment, medial malleolus. This is small fracture. We cannot apply any nail or any plate, you cannot apply anything like that, or it is again a small fracture. So, this area you can simply insert a screw and that will hold the bone fragment. So, that is screw fixation. You can use more than one screw, usually one screw will never be enough, multiple screw fixation, understand? Fine. Look at this, TBW means what? Tension band wiring. It is in a figure of 8 manner. It is in the figure of 8, see, it is in the figure of 8. It is, we use stainless steel, SS wire, stainless steel wire, and cross the fracture. This is the fracture, Olecranon fracture. This is, what fracture is this? Patella fracture. You insert a SS wire like this, and in a figure of 8 manner you tighten it. Once you tighten, the fracture will come and compress, and it will, that is the treatment of choice for Olecranon fracture or patella fracture. There are certain other bones which can be treated by tension band wiring. What are they? See, this is patella, and this is, yeah, this is patella fracture, and this is Olecranon. Olecranon, this is Olecranon, and what is this? This is medial malleolus. Medial malleolus you can use tension band wiring, and this is greater tuberosity. So, any small fragment bones around the joint, it should be around the joint. Medial malleolus is around the joint, patella is around the joint, Olecranon is around the joint, greater tuberosity. Around the joint, you can insert a wire in a figure of 8 manner. Okay. So, patella, Olecranon and medial malleolus, these are the bones which are treated by tension band wiring. Okay. There are certain intra-articular fracture. A fracture, if the fracture happens here, that is extra-articular. The joint is not involved, and if a fracture happens here, the fracture is involving the joint, it is known as intra-articular fracture. And look at this, this is okay. Look at this, there is a depression. For a normal joint, you need a smooth surface. Then only you will have a soundless, frictionless, smooth movement. If the surface is irregular, you will never get a smooth movement. You will have a rubbing, and the rubbing will erode the cartilage, and it will produce osteoarthritis. Patient will have a severe pain. So, when a patient suffer intra-articular fracture, you should ensure that the surface is smooth, or you should restore the surface by surgery. So, intra-articular fracture, the treatment, if it is displaced, that has to be reduced, meticulous reduction and restoration of the normal joint anatomy. Otherwise, you will have a step-like deformity, and when the patient walks, this area will go for irregular surface, and that will produce severe pain. Okay, so how do you treat? It should be treated like this. See, it has to be reduced and maintained. Normal original surface of the tibial condyle should be maintained. So, all intra-articular fracture, if they are displaced, that has to be open and reduced, open reduction and internal fixation for internal, intra-articular fracture. We have a slides and tell you later. So, intra-articular fracture require internal fixation. Why? To maintain the alignment of the normal articular surface and anatomical restoration, otherwise the patient will have a deformity. If you don't do it, you will develop pain, you will develop restriction of movement and early secondary osteoarthritis. Okay. Now, solve this question. Yeah, tension band wiring is done in all except patella, olecranon and medial malleolus, but definitely not Colles fracture. Good. Figure of 8, like wire fixation. It is for wire fixation. Figure of 8, brace is clavicle fracture. That is why they are giving you. The moment you see figure of 8, you go check, select clavicle. Yeah, it is medial malleolus. Wire is different, brace is different. Both are in a figure of 8 manner. Understand? Good. So the answer is what? Medial malleolus. Patellar tendon bearing POP. You apply POP from the patellar tendon up to foot. So you cover from the patella and up to this. So which fracture are you covering? Tibia. So the fracture in the tibia you cover from the patella and ankle, foot. Okay. So patellar tendon bearing cost is for a tibial shaft fracture, not for a patellar fracture. Tube cost is applied around. I just told you tube cost is from mid thigh to mid leg. Any fracture around the knee joint. It may be patella, proximal tibia, distal femur. The fractures are undisplaced fracture. You think it is surgery is not required, go for a tube cast or cylinder cast.